The CHQR.
I don't care if you never...
Joining us now, it's Jay Rosenzweig from Rosenzweig and Company here. He's the managing partner here to talk about women in executive positions and kind of a disturbing trend, Jay. It's on the way downward, isn't it?
Yeah, the fact that the number of women in top executive jobs went down compared to last year came as a surprise to us. We expected some increase, assuming corporate Canada is making perhaps slow but steady progress, letting more women in. Our data shows that the assumption was in fact wrong. Compared to last year, we went backwards.
How do we explain it?
There are a number of ways to describe why this phenomenon is happening. And a lot of it is rooted not in what I would call blatant discrimination, but rather some systemic conditions which have prevailed for many years at the top ranks.
Old Boys Club.
Yeah, Old Boys Club is a big part of it. There's no doubt about it. When we achieve a critical mass of women, when that day finally arrives in key decision-making positions, that I believe will naturally accelerate the process of change. The women who make it to the top are the role models to other women and will gradually change the traditional mindset, but we're still far from that point. Our data shows that there are still very few women in top executive jobs, and there are still few companies that have women in their top ranks. Since we're starting from such a small base, we certainly believe a lot more work must be done.
Yeah, well, yeah, you're exactly right. But don't you find also that women, as they progress up the ladder, if you will, when they're in their 30s, may take time off to have kids, whereas the men continue to climb, and they sort of halt their progress?
I completely agree with that point. And
in the middle, they kind of lose that momentum.
Well, that's absolutely true, and because of that, we would expect that the number of males at the top would be higher, but these numbers are so astonishingly low that we feel even if you take that factor into account, more work needs to be done, and there are more female executives out there who are equally as talented as men, if not more, who aren't getting to the top. We began this study 3 years ago, basically motivated by a British executive in the advertising industry who said in Toronto that women don't reach the top in his industry because they don't commit themselves to the job. Personally, I didn't agree with these comments, but they got us thinking about the problem. We wanted to learn about the situation in Canada. How many women in this country have reached top jobs? So we developed this study project that produced hard data about the number of women in top-paid jobs. The findings were interesting and somewhat unexpected. We expected the numbers to be low, but they in fact were fewer than 5%. So fewer than 5% of the executive officers we studied that year were women. And we felt this issue was important enough to continue to study from a longer-term perspective, and that's why we do this project on a year-to-year basis. So certainly you're right. There are factors that would cause the numbers to be not equal, but so low, unacceptable in our view.
So how do you change it?
There are a number of remedies to look at. Education and social awareness would be the top of our list. We hope that our study will contribute to this awareness. Programs to formally support the realities of today, including flex programs, which would accommodate your point about being with family. And by the way, another assumption that needs to be challenged is that men should not be as involved as women with their families and kids. Many fathers today want to play a more active role.
They should, but
in the lives of their children.
It's still very traditional.
It is still traditional, but the tradition isn't what it once was. And so as the market becomes tighter, employers will have more negotiating power, and companies that offer attractive work-life policies will be in a better position to attract top talent. I have male candidates who are now taking time off because of having children and family obligations, and so you do have that.
Well, that's good.
And there is one more drastic measure which we wouldn't recommend at this point.
Legislation.
Legislation.
Yeah.
So Norway, I don't know if you noticed, but they took a very aggressive stance and mandated that 40% of all boards of their public companies be female. and their numbers have skyrocketed.
I'm sure that they have.
But, as a female, I would imagine one wouldn't want to be looked at as a quota on the other hand.
True.
That there are always drawbacks to affirmative action programs.
Agreed. Jay, we appreciate you speaking with us this morning. Thank you very much.
It's been a pleasure.